Records. Okay, so, all right, so we live in California, and in California, we're registered as a private school. And as a private school, we have to keep records. So how do I do that? Really easy. There's a couple of different ways. Like I keep attendance, and I keep attendance through, we have an app. There's an app, and I'll have to look at because it's not my favorite app. There's other apps that I'm sure are much better, but you could do it on like your phone or a device. I also have kept paper records for years and years. And even though I'm using the app right now, I'm using the app to help remind me days that we missed, so that, because it's easier for me to grab the phone than to go find my record book. So I keep a record book every year, and it has, so we're supposed to, for our state, we have to file what's called a public school or private school affidavit. So there's those papers in there. And then there's a copy of the Waldorf curriculum in there, like our curriculum chart. And if you would like a copy of that, that's at melisanielsen.com/resources. So that's in there. And then the planning that we have for the kids is usually in there. Now we're using Planning for Peace now. So I usually might make a note that says in Planning for Peace. So all of Planning for Peace is a great record keeper because it has all your lesson plans in there. Everything that you're doing, all of that is in Planning for Peace. So when you're doing the work, there's even a place for you to check off that you did it. So that is a huge record keeper. I would keep the ones to use every year. So I have last year's and I have this year's, and I will keep those all on the shelf as my record keeping for, in this state, we're supposed to keep them for, I think, 5 or 7 years, something like that. So I will just keep them all lined up on the shelf. So that's how I will keep track of what we've done lesson-wise. I also, like I said, keep an attendance log. And in our case, we also have to write who's the principal and who's the director of the school and silly things like that. So that's all there in this binder that I have. And then that binder is just for that. I don't put anything else in there because that's kind of my like, have to pull the government off the shelf kind of thing and go through that. But if you are looking at it from the looking at transcripts, so by 9th grade, and we just got done doing this for my daughter, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. When you are looking at what you need for high school, depending on what your state requirements are, you need to first know how many credits your child needs to graduate. So now I don't know how I got the number that I did in my head, but I had this number in my head that it was like 24 or 22. That's the number of credits you need to graduate in Utah, which is probably why it was in my head, because that's where we lived last and where I was working on children's transcripts last. So when I sat down to do Eleanor's, at the end of her junior year, I sat down to do them and I was like, what? The state of California only requires 13 credits to graduate, and she already had 22. So how do you evaluate? There are sites that tell you how many hours equal a credit, and I can't remember the hours now. It's like, it's either 90 or 180. Anyways, there are sites that teach you that, and I actually have some resources, Rhiannon, for you specifically in our summer camp that we did. It's in Thinking, Feeling, Willing, under the miscellaneous videos. There's a whole section from our summer camp, and you want the high school section that has like our resources and how, like, what we looked up and what we planned, how we came up with the numbers that we did. So if you are keeping track for not high school, I mean, you're keeping track for lower 8 grades, and I have to do that every now and again. Somebody will want to know Sam's transcript, and so I'll put that together. Keeping track of those main lessons, each main lesson topic, it falls into, whether it be math or language arts or science or social studies, it falls into one of those categories, and it's pretty rigorous. If you're working the Waldorf curriculum the way it's intended, your child will get everything they need, everything they need. And then some, and then some. I am continually finding that we do way more than a lot of people do. A lot of school kids do. And even our homeschooled counterparts that seem really busy, they're not doing as much as we're doing. They're not getting the depth that we're getting. And I don't like to walk around comparing myself to people, but I always find it very interesting when people say things about, whether it be about our children or about Waldorf homeschooling in general, that these children are very adjusted, that they know how to talk to anybody, that they have really good writing skills usually, and that they are very well spoken. What was it that Soraya did our kids do a church program every year, and our bishop actually, what did he say about her? She's just 7.
He was impressed with her voice.
That she was able to speak. Yeah. That she could and granted she's a more outgoing child, but she also, we do a lot of exercises daily on a continuous basis. We do the copper rod exercises where it's about tossing and pulling and catching and being very poised and standing still and being able to catch that. We do a lot of tongue twisters, and she has speech issues. So for her, that's always been a struggle, and I've always been on it because I know that the older they get with speech issues, the more they're going to struggle up here and in their heart. And so I want to make sure that I'm always on it with her. So with regards to knowing whether or not your children are getting what they need, we do an evaluation process twice a year, at least twice a year. Sometimes I do it more often. Last year I did it after just a few months in because my daughter has an April birthday, and it was my intent that she would not start first grade until she was 7 plus, what is that? Like 4 months or something like that. And the reason why that was my intent was, one, you want to keep your child in the age of their grade for most of the year. So I didn't want to jump her in when she was 6 and not ready. She would have been 6 and 3 months or 6 and 4 months, and not ready for all of the content. And she wouldn't be turning 7 until the end of the year. And that would have had everything off. So it would have had the entire curriculum off. I wanted to make sure that the 9-year change stories hit her when she was supposed to, that the stories of 12 hit her when they were supposed to. And that can't happen if your child is not the age of their grade for most of the year. And so if they're not turning the next age by February or early March, I generally recommend that you wait, or that you start in January of the next year. So that was what my evaluation was about for Soraya last year. We did extra evaluations because I wanted to sort of gauge, should we do this sort of soft start first grade? And we did it. We started it, and it didn't go great because she wasn't ready. So I was so glad that we just sort of did this soft start rather than me diving in and trying to push a square peg into a round hole. She just wasn't ready. So evaluation is golden. It's golden. And it's something that often homeschoolers neglect to do because we get so anti-testing that we don't want to evaluate. And our evaluation process is not anything scary. It's all about you and how you are connecting with the child. So when we do evaluations, I often say, let's meditate on the child first, and let's figure out what it is that they are trying to tell you, and what their schoolwork is trying to tell you. They might be thriving and everything might be great. They might be reading well. They might be, doing really well in all of the arts. And I've had children, I have 5 children, so I have a big pool to pull from. I've had children that were doing just spot on. But most of the time, there's something you have to go, well, math is suffering over here. What's going on there? Or I'm noticing handwriting is not doing really well. Let's sort out what spatial things could be going on. or maybe reading isn't going as well as you'd like it to. Let's sort that out. What needs to happen? Do we need to be reading more? Do we need to adjust what the content is? So those are the sorts of things that I do when we do an evaluation.